So I get a call today from a good friend of mine whose friend's father lost his life to suicide, 79 years old. She's calling me because she knew of the event in our lives where my brother lost his life to suicide on March 27, 2015. She's looking for advice to help her friend through this trying times of asking the why. Why did this happen? Why is this happening to my father at 79 years old? Why does it happen to anybody, regardless of what age? And so all I could do is think back to when my brother Wayne died and the advice that we had received from friends and family. And the first bit of information I want to share with you is the advice from friends that said, first of all, you need to be vulnerable. Friends of mine that had experienced death by suicide. One of my friends, his brother. The other friend, not once, not twice, but 3 times. A mother, a cousin, and a very, very good friend. And they said, you have to be vulnerable. In other words, you have to accept that he died by a mental illness. And the second thing is, there's 2 unique emotions to suicide. One is anger and one is guilt. Don't harbor either one. If he were to die from cancer, if he were to die of a heart attack, there's nothing you could have done about it. Well, from there we decided as a family, we knew that we were going to be grieving. And this was a unique set of circumstances because we had never gone through a death by suicide. So started reading all the books that I could find, all the writings on depression and suicide. And first of all, we knew that we needed to get through the grieving. And we knew this wasn't going to be a 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, not even 1 year process. So we found this book called Good Grief, which is a 68-page book, which I highly recommend for anybody that's grieving from a loss of a loved one, regardless of how they die. And it talks about the 10 steps of grieving, not in any certain order, but certainly the first step is going to be shock, which we all experience. Next is expressing emotion, breaking down, and then depression and feeling very lonely, and also experiencing physical symptoms of distress. We may also become panicky. We may feel a sense of guilt about our loss of our loved one. We're filled with anger and resentment. We resist returning. We gradually hope starts to come through, and we struggle to affirm reality because we just don't want to accept that this actually happened. Well, we felt we needed to do something. We needed to grieve, but at the same time, we couldn't just sit back and do nothing. So with the information, armed with the information that we knew about depression and suicide, we found a movie called Hope Bridge. This movie called Hope Bridge is about a journey of a boy who's in high school that loses his father to suicide. And during his journey, he's dealing with the 2 emotions, anger and guilt. In his case, it's predominantly anger. And he's dealing in such a way that through his journey, he finds out doesn't find out the reason why his father took his life, which we never will find out exactly why people take their lives. But he finds out that his grandfather also took his life. He's angry at his mother because his mother never told him about his illness, the illness that his father had, nor his grandfather experienced. It takes him so much to the point of the tipping point that his anger has taken over his soul. I'd like to pause just a moment here and have you see this clip of Jackson's portrayal of anger.
Yeah, I just don't get it.
Jackson, maybe there's nothing to get.
Well, there is. There has to be.
Listen to me. You need to let this go. The deeper you dig, the worse it's gonna get.
Well, I can figure this out.
No, there's nothing to figure out. Jackson, that's the point. It doesn't make sense. There's no logical reason to it. Yes, you're gonna make yourself crazy trying to find it. Can't you see what's happening? You're doing the same thing your dad did. It's a cycle, and you're falling right into it.
You have no idea what this is like.
Yes, I do. Jackson, just trust me.
You want me to trust you? You? The girl who's so obsessed with suicide you follow her around? Okay, you really hit the jackpot with this one, Sophie. Well done.
Everything I've done has been to help you.
Yeah, well, I didn't choose this, okay?
You know that. Why would you say that? I'm done.
So you see the obvious anger that Jackson is going through. Not only his anger, but he's determined to find out why. Why did his dad take his life? And yet his friend Sophie, who's beside him, happens to be with him, which you're not seeing that part of the story, because she's going through therapy as Jackson is in his expulsion from school for a week period of time, because she attempted to take her own life. That's why she's starting to reason with him. Jackson, you can't explain the why. You have to, at some point, understand that life has to move on and appreciate the times that you had with your father. And she did her best to do that. But he was still convinced that he was going to continue to find out why. In this next scene, you're going to find even more anger. Anger to the point where something desperate just may happen.
Hey! Get out of my
So you just saw Jackson express extreme anger, and he's taken it out on the things that he remembered about his father. His father was a guitar player in a band, and in his guitar case, earlier in the story, Jackson finds a note from his father, and the note says, "I'm sorry, I can't." Well, in Jackson's pocket, you don't know, but in the story, he keeps that note with him all the time. And he smashes his guitar, and he throws his bed against the wall, and he's in a fit of anger, and he's still convinced he's got to find out why his dad took his life. But he's to the point where he's over the top. His anger has taken over his life. Now what's next? Let's take a look.
Pain is not your enemy. It's the fear of the pain, of facing it. That's your enemy.
So you see Jackson is to the point where he's ready to take his own life, which is one of the steps of grieving. When you grieve the loss of someone that dies by suicide, one of the grieving actions that can take place, unfortunately, is a loved one can get so depressed to the point they're going to take their life. Jackson was to that point. He was standing on the edge of the bridge that his father jumped off to kill himself. And the counselor steps in. And what does he say? He says, "It's not the pain, Jackson, that's your enemy. It's the fear of the pain that's your enemy." This really resonated with me because in 2009, I had cancer. I had colon cancer. And a friend of mine said during the toughest days of going through that time in my life, when I had heard from my doctor that it looked like my cancer had spread from my colon to my liver, which I didn't think was very good news, my friend called me, whose son was 15 years old at the time and had gone through a 40-day chemically induced coma. And I said, "Andy, how did you get through the darkest days of your life with your son, being that he nearly died multiple times. And he said, you know, the other side of faith is fear and anger. And I said, will you repeat that? He said, the other side of faith is fear and anger. And that resonated with me. And I think to the counselor in this movie, Hope Bridge, he said, the pain is not your enemy, it's the fear of the pain. And he was so right. It's the fear of what's going to happen and of the unknown. And as we move forward in our days ahead, it's not the pain that we're going to feel, but it's the fear and the anticipation. And I think the counselor was so right. So Jackson walks down off the bridge, and he is able to overcome his fear through the help of his counselor. And let's see with the next clip in terms of what he does in terms of fueling his anger in a positive way. So Jackson takes the guitar, his memory of the anger that he exhibited in trying to find out why did his dad take his life? And he takes this note that says, I'm sorry, I can't. And he burns those treasured memories of his father. Why? Because he knew that he had to get rid of his anger. And for him, it was burning the memories. And then the next day he takes the ashes, the remains of those reminders, and he plants it around the tree with his mother and his sister in remembrance of his father. And from that moment on, he was able to walk free, almost totally free from his anger. So that's where I'd like to bring the story of Hope Bridge into my life and how I was able to deal with the loss of my brother through suicide. You see, I dealt with guilt. I worked with my brother for 32 years. He was my best friend. We did everything together at work and out of work. And I needed to get rid of my guilt. I couldn't sleep at night. I had these guilty feelings all the time. So I decided to do what Jackson did, only putting it in writing. And I put down on 6 pages of paper 11 specific situations where I said, Wayne, I wish I would have. I could name the place, the time, where I was. And I did that before our service for Wayne on our campus in Holland on his birthday on May 28th. And I wrote a letter to Wayne. I said, I'm sorry, I wish I would have done these things. Well, I buried those 11 specific instances in the urn with his ashes. And immediately I felt the relief of the guilt. Now I'm going to say I'm not 100% free of that guilt, but I can say I'm north of 80% free of that guilt. I can't tell you 1 or 2 of those situations off the top of my head. That has freed me to be able to move on, to be a lifeguard for others. You know, there's either a survivor of a suicide, there's a contemplator of a suicide, there's a lifeguard of a suicide, or those people that are going to sit on the sidelines. Our family decided to be lifeguards, which means that we wanted to bring mental illness awareness and suicide prevention education to the community. And we did that through the Hope Bridge movie, and also now with Be Nice, Notice, Invite, Challenge, Empower, a very simple tool that is the stop, drop, and roll of mental illness. I'd like to conclude by just using some affirmation, some words from Wayne that we found a year and a half after he died. In the note that he left us, I know verbatim. Quickly it says, "Kathy, who's my sister-in-law, family and friends, I love you all. This depression has gotten the best of me. Please don't blame yourself as it was me. Please use my illness of depression to help others. God, please use me to help others." Signed, Wayne. So remember that there is a way to overcome guilt. There's a way to overcome anger. And as we approach these holidays, remember the good times of your loved one. And remember that you can be a lifeguard and you can help others by sharing your experiences with others. Thank you very much.